of the analogue network after the 1st of January 2000, fearing publicly declared threats of legal action by Vodafone. For a matter of 100 to 200 million compensation to Vodafone, Australia could still enjoy real competition with the continued existence of the analogue telephone network. We give Vodafone a huge windfall by releasing them of their contractual obligation to be at least 51% Australian-owned, with absolutely no compensation to the Australian public. This is the end of real competition for mobile telephone systems in Australia. In the United States, there is analogue and digital. Australians have no choice in which system to buy. They must choose digital. Too bad for the farmers, too bad for the fishermen who use mobile telephones offshore, too bad for the 400,000 hearing...
In accordance with Standing Order 106A, the time for member statements has concluded. The Prime Minister, with ministerial
Speaker, I
arrangements...
inform the House that the Minister for Employment, Workplace Relations and Small Business and Leader of the House will be absent from question time this week. He'll be travelling to Switzerland to attend the meeting of the International Labour Organisation and to the United Kingdom for discussions with the United Kingdom ministers. The Minister for Employment Services will answer questions relating to Mr Reith's ministerial portfolio, and the Deputy Leader of the House, Mr McGoran, will act as Leader of the House in his typically competent style.
Questions without notice. Are there any questions? The Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Minister for Transport. Does the Minister recall informing the House last week that the automotive industry had not agreed to new diesel emission standards before the tax deal was negotiated with the Democrats, stating, quote, "They certainly had not told the government or anybody else that they had," unquote. Minister, isn't it a fact that the document which you yourself tabled, a memo from the National Road Transport Commission dated 25 May 1999, states in relation to new diesel emission standards that the motor industry, quote, "supports the adoption of the proposed standards"? Minister, will you explain why you have not misled the House?
Minister for Transport and Regional Services.
Mr Speaker, there's been no misleading of the House whatsoever in regard to this matter. The issue of consultation with industry in relation to emission standards has been something that's been going on for quite some time, and they have indicated they may. There's a big difference between them indicating what they might be prepared to support and the government adopting a final position.
Member for New England.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is addressed to the Prime Minister. Has the Prime Minister's attention been drawn to a recent study demonstrating a fall in living standards of children in single-income families? Are these findings accurate, and what action is the government taking to restore the balance?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, I thank the honourable member for New England for his question. My attention has been drawn to a NATSEM study on income distribution, which was released today. And this report covers the period from 1982 until 1995-96, and it shows that children living in couple families where only one of their parents worked faced a $24 a week fall in their average family income. The report also shows that children living in two-income families experienced a $43 a week increase in their family incomes over the same period. Now, Mr Speaker, these conclusions come as no surprise to me, and they come as no surprise to the government. And that is because our view is very much in line with the conclusions of this report, and it's because of that that we decided before the 1996 election to propose a number of family tax initiatives that were designed to address the very problem that has been unearthed by the NATSEM investigation. And that is why we proposed the Family Tax Initiative, which for the first time in about 15 years sought to reverse the trend against single-income families. And we have sought to do it not at the expense of two-income families, but we have done it in the teeth of a lot of opposition and criticism from the Labor Party and from other sections of the Australian community, who seem to believe that giving choice to parents about the caring arrangements for their children when their children are young represents some attempt at social engineering and turning back the clock to a time when overwhelmingly mothers in the Australian community were not in the paid workforce. We are not about social engineering. We are not about turning back the clock. We are about giving effective choice to Australian families. We're about giving more choice to the mothers and fathers of Australian children so they and not the government can make a decision as to whether people are in both parents are in full-time work, or when children are young, one elects, mother or father, to be at home full-time when children are very young to care for them. And that is why the Family Tax Initiative, for the first time in 1996, recognised the need to reverse this trend. And we did it by the introduction of a special increase in the tax-free threshold, where one family member was out of the full-time workforce and where one of the children was under the age of 5 years. And, Mr Speaker, that translated into a very significant additional help to those families, but we weren't content to leave it at that. We went even further in the tax plan that the Labor Party is about to vote against, Mr Speaker. One of the things the Labor Party will do when it votes against our tax plan is to vote against justice for single-income families in Australia. What they will be doing is saying that you shouldn't have a tax system that recognises the right of families in this country to elect against paid childcare and to provide parental childcare in place of paid childcare. And, Mr Speaker, we believe in choice. We don't believe in telling people what to do. We believe in giving those people choice. And, Mr Speaker, under our new proposal, under the proposal the Labor Party intends to vote against, it will be possible for a single-income household with one child under 5 years to have a tax-free threshold of $13,000 as a minimum. Now, the Labor Party doesn't like that. The Labor Party doesn't like the choice that's involved in that. The Labor Party is prepared to turn its back on the findings of the Harding report, and not surprisingly, Mr Speaker, because this report covers what period? It covers the period 1982 to 1995, 1996, and I wonder who was in power then.
Leader of the Opposition.
The report showed was a massive improvement in the condition of the poor. That's what it showed. May I follow up my previous question to the Minister for Transport again. Minister, again, do you recollect the NRTC report saying, and I quote, "Vehicle manufacturers and the road transport and bus industries support the adoption of the proposed standards." Do you recollect saying to me a week later, on the 3rd of June, the Leader of the Opposition, quote, "ought to find me the evidence that the automotive industry had agreed on this, because they certainly had not told the government or anybody else that they had." Minister, you simply not know what's going on in your portfolio, or are you embarrassed about having slipped one over the Democrats?
Minister for Transport and Regional Services.
Mr Speaker, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his question. In relation to this matter, as I've stated quite openly, a set of reviews and emission standards have been under consideration for some time, and the motor vehicle industry and the trucking industry had indicated an option or a series of options which they might have been prepared to work with. However, they did not support the outcome that was previously— I beg your pardon, let me phrase this more correctly. They had indicated some willingness to consider some options that were being looked at. But on the 4th of June, which is since the House last met, I've had this letter from the National Road Transport Commission. It reads in part that I'll be aware that the Commission has been working for some time with the National Environment Protection Council on a review of vehicle emission standards. This work has been progressed by the Motor Vehicle Emissions Committee. A few weeks ago, the Motor Vehicle Emissions Committee advised the Commission and the National Environment Protection Council of a set of options for consideration. Their proposals were qualified in a number of cases by questions regarding the availability of low-sulphur diesel fuel. For technical reasons, the emission standards under consideration are heavily dependent upon being able to access fuel of appropriate quality. I note that the environmental proposals outlined in the tax package will accelerate the availability of low-sulphur fuel and, as a consequence, provide for the acceleration of vehicle emission standards, especially for light and medium diesel vehicles. These are now proposed to meet Euro 3 from 2002-2003 rather than Euro 2. Yes, I did. Before.
Order. Order.
So
the
you're calling
Minister
into
has
question.
the call.
The Leader of the Opposition, regrettably, calls into question the integrity of the National Road Transport Commission.
Order. Members on
goes
my
on to
left, the
say-
Minister has the call.
This is an important change, as this segment is the largest numerically and operates mainly in urban areas where emission levels are most relevant. This package now also provides for Euro 4 in 2006-07, which was not previously under consideration. At the meeting of the NRTC this morning, Commissioners expressed strong support for the new vehicle emission standards. The proposal to accelerate the introduction of low-sulphur diesel fuel will provide for a significantly earlier introduction than diesel emission standards than was previously thought possible.
Honourable Member for Cook. Member for Cook will resume. The Manager of Opposition Business.
I asked if the Minister tabled the document from which he was just quoting.
Was the Minister quoting from a document? Is the document confidential? The honourable member for Cook.
Mr Speaker, my question is addressed to the Treasurer. Can the Treasurer advise the House of any recent economic indicators? What do these signify about the ongoing strength of the Australian economy?
Member for Kingston. The Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, I thank the honourable member for Cook for his question and his interest in the Australian economy. Recent indicators show increasing confidence in the Australian economy, Mr Speaker. A survey of 180 chief executives by the Australian Centre for International Business at the Universities of Melbourne and New South Wales indicates business leaders are expressing a level of optimism not seen since the Asian financial crisis in 1997. Expectations among chief executives indicate that they are preparing for strong growth in both local and overseas investment opportunities over the next 6 months. Mr Speaker, the ANZ job advertisements were released today in relation to May, showing that, according to the ANZ Bank, job advertisements rose by 1.3% in May. Mr Speaker, this is the highest level since the Labor recession of 1990. Compared with May last year, the number of job advertisements was up 17.9%, Mr Speaker. And the last 3 quarters have seen consistent rises, 0.8% in March, 1.7% in April. According to the ANZ Bank, recent trends in job advertising are based on previous experience are consistent with net new jobs growth averaging 18 to 20,000 per month
for Melbourne
over the next 3 months, Mr Speaker. And I take the interjections from the member for Melbourne, who welcomes such good growth in the Australian economy. Mr Speaker, he doesn't welcome good growth in the Australian economy. Oh,
Speaker,
sorry,
Mr.
Speaker, I apparently misrepresented him, Mr Speaker. He doesn't welcome good jobs growth in the Australian economy. Mr Speaker, this is equivalent to an annual growth rate in employment of about 2.25%. So, Mr Speaker, we see a returning confidence in the business sector coming out of the Asian financial crisis. We're seeing good job growth in the Australian economy. We now have unemployment, the lowest it's been in a decade, the lowest it's been since Labor's recession in 1990-1991. Mr Speaker, good economic results, of course, are not built on bad policy. It's been necessary over the course of the last 3 years to lock in low inflation, low interest rates, to lock in a budget surplus and to start reducing debt, Mr Speaker. And I'm sure the member for Patterson will be...
Member for Patterson will cease his persistent interjection.
The member for Patterson, Mr Speaker, I'm sure will be glad to know this government has paid off $24 billion of Labor's debt, Mr Speaker. When this government came to office, Labor in the last 5 budgets had accrued new debt of $80 billion.
$80 billion in its last 5 budgets, 2 of them presided over by the now Leader of the Opposition. Not only, Mr Speaker, has this government put the budget back into surplus, we can now say we have paid off $24 billion of the Keating-Beazley Commonwealth government debt. And if this government's plans to retire to privatise Telstra are put in place, Mr Speaker, we have the chance to completely eliminate the Keating-Beazley Labor debt and get the Commonwealth government debt-free in the 21st century. Mr Speaker, they are the benefits of good economic policy. That will be seen in a strong economy and good jobs growth, and good jobs growth is what the coalition is committed to.
The honourable member for Dixon.
Mr Speaker, thank you. My question is to the Minister for Transport and Regional Services. Minister, did you say on the 29th of May that the diesel fuel rebate scheme was not being abolished, and refer to suggestions that it was being abolished as a spin being put on the agreement to create an energy credit scheme? How does this square with the Democrats' assertion in their environment issues sheet, and repeated by Senator Lees on Face-to-Face yesterday, that the diesel fuel rebate scheme has been abolished and will be replaced with an energy credit scheme? Minister, who is correct? It means a lot to some people.
Minister for Transport and Regional Services.
Well, Mr Speaker, I again remind all rural and regional Australians who happen to be listening to today's broadcast or whatever across the country that the starting point here is that the member for Dixon, who purports to speak for rural and regional interests for that side of the House, is against you having the benefits of tax reform and of cheaper transport costs.
You're against it.
All that needs to be said in regard to this is that what we have negotiated is that the diesel fuel credits. All that needs to be said in regard to this matter is that the diesel fuel credits will be administered and preserved under the new energy credit scheme when it comes into place.
The honourable member for Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is addressed to the Minister for Immigration and Multicultural Affairs. Can the minister inform the House of action the government has taken to deal with the international problem of people smuggling? Minister, in an environment in which Australia is increasingly becoming a target for smugglers, what else is the government proposing to further restrict opportunities for organisers of this gruesome trade?
Minister for Immigration and Multicultural Affairs.
Mr Speaker, I thank the honourable member for Robertson for his question. I guess he was seized of the importance of this matter when we saw over this last weekend the apprehension of a vessel entering our territorial waters which may have been heading either to his electorate or mine, although it's been suggested in some more informed comments that they may have been on their way to mine. But the fact is that we have seen a very significant increase in the number of—
Minister will resume his seat. I warn the member for Patterson. I've already asked him to resist from persistent interjection. The Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I'm emboldened by the comments of the honourable members opposite in this issue, because I heard an interjection that said that we weren't doing enough. And there are some opportunities, of course, for the opposition to be able to assist us in relation to doing those matters that need to be done, and I'll come to that in a moment. But we have seen a significant number of illegal boat arrivals, some 33 this year, with some 738 people to date. That's quite significant. It is a matter of concern to the government. We've seen— yes, gruesome was a term that I used to describe the people smuggling that's going on, and I think it is a trade in human beings which ought to be seen in that light. But the fact is that it is becoming increasingly more sophisticated. There have been vessels capable of travelling at night in international waters, which has not been the case before. They are operating with the most sophisticated navigational devices. And we're seeing a level of organisation associated with these matters which have been more in line with those that have been used to access the United States of America and Japan. We are intent on protecting the integrity of our borders. There has been an increase of arrivals not only by sea but also by air. We've responded in a number of ways to deal with those issues, and I'll mention them. Firstly, we've been acting very positively offshore in relation to these matters, as exemplified by the way in which we were able to deter the possible transport of some 2,000 people from Somalia to Australia. And I want to commend the cooperation that my officials were able to engage from the international media to ensure that people were aware that they had no entitlement to access Australia, no entitlement to enter here unlawfully, and that they were being grievously misled by the organisers. We've also been actively involved internationally in relation to China. I attended and met with a conference at which I met with the Chinese Vice Foreign Minister, where I was able to engage him on these issues and obtain continued cooperation from China in relation to removals. We've also sent the Secretary of my department, who has been to the Fujian province, where most of these recent arrivals have come from, to enable him to put clearly the matter before local officials and to ensure that they are actively involved, as I know China is, in trying to interdict vessels before they leave. The Prime Minister established a high-level task force to look at our own coastal surveillance arrangements, and the report to him will enable us to consider further action in that regard. I've also mentioned that I'm looking at increased penalties in relation to those people who are involved in people smuggling, and I'm sure I will receive the utmost cooperation from the opposition in ensuring that within legislation that is already in another place, we might be able to make amendments which will deal with this issue quickly. But as others have engaged me, I heard reference to prompt return. Let me just finally say that the opposition could be well seized with the importance of facilitating some other legislation, that dealing with judicial review, because those people who exploit the opportunity to delay the departure of people who have no lawful right or entitlement to be in Australia are ensuring that the people traffickers are out there holding out the view that if they get people to Australia, they may be able to remain here. And we need your cooperation in relation to that measure to ensure that we're able to deal with these matters quickly and expeditiously. And I would hope that in the spirit of cooperation and bipartisanship that I know the Labor Party is so well known for, that we will see some cooperation tendered in relation to that matter shortly.
The Leader of the Opposition.
I'm certainly interested in a judicial review of that pregnant woman who was returned. My question is to the Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister, yesterday you claimed you had fulfilled your pledge to deliver the full $3.5 billion of fuel cuts or resign, claiming, quote, "I'm on the money, on the mark." Deputy Prime Minister, isn't it true that even with the extra measures you listed yesterday to justify your position, rail and bridges, you are still off the money and off the mark to the tune of $600 to $630 million a year?
The Deputy Prime Minister. Make up your mind. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Trade.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is wrong, wrong and wrong, and he flips-flops on capital gains tax. Page 61, we deliver. You can have the splash of colour, we have the substance, and we'll deliver to Export Australia all of that and more.
The Honourable Member for Dixon. Deputy Leader of the Opposition. Leader of the Opposition. The Member for Corangamite.
Mr Speaker, my question is addressed to the Minister for Forestry and Conservation. Is the Minister aware of industry concerns regarding the completion of the remaining regional forest agreements by the 31st of December deadline, particularly in my electorate of Corangamite and the Otways? What is being done to ensure that this deadline is met? Is the Minister aware of any other influences that may put continuing forest operations in these areas at risk?
Very good question. Minister for Forests and Conservation.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the timber industry in Corangamite and throughout Victoria, in such places as the electorate of Ballarat and Indi, where I have visited in recent weeks, has definite concerns regarding the future of their jobs and their businesses. Mr Speaker, in the town of Colac, some 300 people attended a meeting with me, which was organised by the CFMEU, to express their concerns and in particular their fears and anger that the Federal Labor Party is determined to scuttle the government's RFA legislation in the Senate. I attended similar CFMEU meeting in Woodend in the electorate of Ballarat, and of course in each case and in the electorate of Indi, all of the people were telling me how grateful they were to their local members in representing their interests, in having me to speak with them and understand their problems. During my visit in Corangamite, I also had discussions with executives of the Geelong-based chipwood exporter Midway Proprietary Limited, which is owned by a consortium of Victorian sawmillers and essential to the viability of those sawmills as it exports their mill residues and the chips and the forest waste necessary to ensure healthy forest regrowth. Midway informed me that if they are not confident that the Victorian RFA process become completed by this December, they will cease purchasing product throughout Victoria in September of this year. Mr Speaker, the government has provided additional human resources to the process, and I have advised Midway that I am confident of completing all the conditional RFA processes by that time. However, Mr Speaker, I cannot guarantee the passage of the government's RFA legislation through the Senate, which is equally important to a firm like Midway, which creates the jobs throughout country Victoria and also in the electorate of CORIO. I'm now in possession of the Labor Party's proposed amendments to Clause 8 of the RFA legislation, Mr Speaker, and I can tell you I didn't get it from the Labor Party, which shows how cranky some of their own people are with them. Not only does it propose that the completed WA RFA and all future RFAs, such as 3 in Victoria, 4 in New South Wales and 1 in Queensland, be subject to Senate disallowance, but it further includes 11 opportunities for litigation after that event. Plus it places severe constraints upon any company damaged by the acts of a future government to receive compensation. In other words, Mr Speaker, these amendments are clearly designed to scuttle the whole national forest policy process and to remove any incentive through resource security to encourage investment in the future in the forest products industry. It's even worse, Mr Speaker, because they've clearly shown their intention in their amendment to Clause 3 when they add that there should be special arrangements for relocation and retraining of the workers in this forest industry, when, with the Prime Minister's permission, sir, I have now put all the focus on value-adding industry development and keeping people in their jobs, in their towns and in their districts, and keeping the industry going. Mr Speaker, in South Australia recently, and in fact just last week, 2 long-standing Labor Party MPs, steeped in the traditions of the Labor Party, have decided to cross the floor on an issue of grave importance for South Australia. Not for them the principle that their job is more important than their constituents' jobs and futures. In this parliament, 5 Tasmanian representatives and 5 Tasmanian senators are working against their state's best interest, as highlighted by the Deputy Premier of... By their squeals, would you know them? Indeed. By their squeals, sir, would you know them? Why don't you work for your own people for a change?
The Minister will return to the question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Now we have Victorian Labor MPs and senators doing the same thing. Where's the member for Macmillan?
The minister
He
will
puts out
the
press
minister will resume
releases
his
about
seat.
the electorate of
The
Gippsland.
minister will resume his seat. The Leader of the Opposition.
I go to relevance. What relevance has this got to the question he was originally asked? The
the
entirety
Leader
of the Liberal
Opposition-
Party in
The
WA
Leader of the
opposes
Opposition
you.
will resume his seat. The House. The Leader of the Opposition. The minister was asked a question about regional forest agreements and the possibility of those passing through the chamber, and was in that context quite relevant. I invite the minister to conclude his answer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When he has a few Oxford mates to speak with about
Minister, come back to the
forestry,
question.
no worry for the workers.
Minister.
But, Mr Speaker,
Member for Bruce. Minister.
yes, well, Mr Speaker, Michael O'Connor from the CFMEU knows where to get help. He's come to me. But, Mr Speaker, the member for CORIO, I'd like to know what in this process he is doing for truckies
Minister
and
will
workers
resume
in
his
his
seat.
electorate.
The Leader of the Opposition.
You've asked him to wind up. This has gone on for more than 10 minutes.
The Leader of the
It's about
Opposition
damn
will
time.
resume his seat. That is not a valid point of order. The minister had made reference. The minister had made reference to the member for. Member for Graindler is warned. The member for Graindler is warned. Leader of the Opposition. The minister had made reference to the member for CORIO in his opening remarks, and I presumed was winding up on that note.
Yes, well, I am, Mr Speaker. What I'm wanting to question, of course, and point out is that if without this RFA legislation, all the good work comes to nothing because people cannot invest, and if people will not have the security to invest, it's these people's jobs that then count, and I want to know why the Labor Party has done a backflip on its own policy. And I'd say to you, sir, don't workers' rights count anymore. South Australians, Cameron and Crothers, have got the guts to put their people above arrogant
The House will
political
come to order.
opportunism.
The minister will resume his seat. The minister will resume his seat. The minister will resume his seat. The Leader of the Opposition.
Relevance, Mr Speaker. This bloke's worth 5% to us
The
in
Leader of the
WA, so I'm
Opposition
reluctant to
will
shut him up,
resume his
but he's
seat.
way off the point.
The minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We've just had an example
No, the
of
minister
how the
will-
Labor
the
Party
minister will-
works. It's
the
all
minister-
about 5%, not
The
your own
minister will resume
constituents'
his seat.
jobs.
The
Thank you,
minister
Mr.
will resume his seat. The member for the Northern Territory.
Yes, Mr Speaker, my question is to the Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister, isn't it a fact that as part of your $3.5 billion diesel promise to the bush, you undertook in the ANTS package to abolish the diesel excise on remote power generation? Isn't it also a fact that as part of your tax deal with the Democrats, you reneged on this promise?
The Deputy Member for Page. Deputy Prime Minister. Member for Hunter. The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Trade.
Speaker, the opposition is wrong again in terms of alleging that we have shortchanged country Australia. We have not. And indeed, in respect of the Northern Territory, Darwin has been a very big winner thanks to the grant handling clause in the matter.
Minister resume his seat. The Leader of the Opposition.
Question specifically about remote communities
The-
using diesel fuel generation. He's not answering it.
The Leader of the Opposition will resume his seat. The Deputy Prime Minister has had all of 18 seconds on his feet, scarcely time to determine whether the answer is relevant or not. I call the Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, remote centres and remote and regional Australia are being assisted in many additional ways by the agreement reached between the Prime Minister and the Democrats, and these will be further detailed in the amendments which will come forward. We are doing something about reducing the transport costs, whereas you stand on keeping a regime a massive regime of diesel fuel excise tax on rail and too much transport tax generally. We are going to reverse that. I am proud of what this government is doing for rural and remote Australia, including promoting alternatives to diesel power generation.
The Deputy Leader of the Opposition is warned. The member for Mitchell.
Mr Speaker, my question is addressed to the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Can the Minister inform the House whether the government is planning to support the member for Holt for the position of the UNESCO Director-General?
Minister for Foreign Affairs. Minister for Veterans Affairs. Minister for Foreign Affairs has the call.
First of all, can I thank the honourable member for his question and say that there has been some speculation in this morning's media that the government would be supporting the member for Holt for the position of Director-General of UNESCO. I can confirm to the House that the government will indeed be supporting the member for Holt for that position. No hears from the member from Kingsford Smith, though, I notice. Mr Speaker, we regard it as important that UNESCO be well led and that the next Director-General of UNESCO be an effective Director-General, and it is the view of this government that the member for Holt would be an effective Director-General. And I think, putting party politics aside just for a nanosecond, if the Leader of the Opposition could bear me doing that, but to put party politics aside, I think it's in Australia's interest that we promote somebody who had a long record as the Foreign Minister of this country, and before that held a number of other portfolios which are relevant to UNESCO's work, and his experience as an academic also is relevant to that job as well. So, Mr Speaker, I think he will be a good Director-General should he be successful in being elected. Mr Speaker, it is time that the Asia-Pacific region had a Director-General of UNESCO, and there are at the moment 4 candidates from our region putting themselves forward. Whilst we have respect for those people, we don't think any of those people would do the job as well as the member for Holt. We regard the member for Holt as considerably better qualified for that position. Mr Speaker, just to say that there has been a report that I noticed, I think it was on the AM program, suggesting that somehow, this wasn't one of the more bizarre suggestions that I've heard in recent years, that somehow we were running the member for Holt for this position in order to place additional pressure on the Japanese chairman of the World Heritage Committee in the lead-up to the consideration by that committee of whether Kakadu should be listed as in danger or not as a result of the Jabiluka mine. Mr Speaker, the World Heritage Committee will be considering this matter on, I think it's the 12th of July. The election for the Director-General of UNESCO is not until 3 months later. There is absolutely no intention of the government, or for that matter I'm sure the member for Holt or anybody else, to use this question of who the next Director-General should be to put pressure on the current chairman of the World Heritage Committee, who is the Japanese candidate for the position. It just doesn't make any logical sense. It is simply an absurd proposition. So, Mr Speaker, I think the member for Holt could take comfort from the fact that just about all members of this House will be behind him. I hope that members of the House, when they go overseas— Who won't be? Well, who won't be? The member for Kingsford Smith won't be. But, Mr Speaker, I hope that members of this House, when they go abroad, do put in a good word for the member for Holt for this position. Australia has no head of any similar United Nations agency. We are a founding member of the United Nations. We're something like the 12th biggest contributor to that organisation. We have always been a very active country in United Nations affairs, and it would be appropriate that a long-serving and successful foreign minister of this country should take that position.
The honourable member for CORIO.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. Minister, for the benefit of members of the House and farmers in particular industries,
Could you clarify which of the following primary industry levies are GST liable? The rice levy, the wheat industry fund levy, the sugarcane research levy and the fishing industry levy?
Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forests.
Mr Speaker, if the honourable member had been following the debate on our tax reform package, he'd understand the principles that there aren't any taxes on taxes.
Member for McPherson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is addressed to the Minister for Health and Aged Care. Given that 2 million Australians suffer from asthma, can the Minister inform the House of the government's plans to assist asthma sufferers address their condition?
Minister for Health and Aged Care.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for her question and interest. As she mentioned, some 2 million Australians have asthma. We have the second highest mortality in the world from asthma, and it's particularly increasing amongst younger people. 1 in 4 children have asthma, 1 in 7 teenagers, 1 in 10 adults, and it costs somewhere between 580 and 720 million, depending what assumptions you make for the country. It's for this reason that the government's given a commitment to support a national asthma campaign at a cost initially of some $9 million over 3 years. We've got 4 main things we hope to achieve from this. The first is improved management of asthma. This is important, Mr Speaker, because 2/3 of asthma deaths are premature and preventable. We hope to work with practitioners and patients and try and get a better continuity of care, get much better use of medication. The second thing we hope to do is substantially increase education and awareness of asthma in the community. Thirdly, we hope to do research on asthma to have a look at what triggers the onset of attacks. Some attacks are life-threatening. We don't have a clear understanding at all in the Australian context of what may trigger such an attack as this. And fourthly, we hope to undertake some monitoring to improve our understanding of the burden of asthma. At the moment in this country there's no clearinghouse for asthma data, and researchers tell us this will substantially help in the treatment of this condition. Finally, at the Health Ministers' meeting in August, the Commonwealth will be proposing that asthma becomes Australia's 6th national health goal and target. There has been some opposition to this in some governments around Australia. In the last few weeks I've talked to a good number of state and territory health ministers. I believe it will have strong support.
Hear, hear.
The Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Minister for Agriculture and follows the previous question. Minister, are you aware that Senator Alston has supplied an answer on the 1st of June 1999 to a question taken on notice in estimates which states that, quote, officers of the Treasury have advised that there is currently no settled policy for deciding which government levies are to be subject to a GST. Before a policy can be agreed on, discussions will have to take place with the states to ensure a consistent application to all similar levies and charges. How can you say there is a clear policy when the Treasury says there is none?
Member for Watson.
What I said is the
Minister doesn't have the call. Minister. The member for Prospect occupies this chair from time to time, and her behaviour in the House does not currently reflect that. Member for Kingsford Smith. Manager of Opposition Business and the member for Melbourne will all exercise some restraint. The Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forests.
As I said in the previous answer, Mr Speaker, the principle is that you don't tax taxes, and that's the answer. That's the principle of the province.
The honourable member for Moreton.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Employment Services. Can the Minister provide the House with any information regarding the Brisbane City Council's use of currently available employment service programs? How does this compare with the Brisbane City Council's application for and use of similar former programs? Have there been any criticism of the Brisbane City Council's approach, and what is the government's response to those criticisms?
Minister for Employment Services.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Moreton for his question. And, Mr Speaker, Work for the Dole is, of course, one of the signature programs of the Howard government, and it's giving new hope and new opportunities to long-term unemployed people in Brisbane as elsewhere. Unfortunately, Mr Speaker, even though people such as the member for Melbourne now admit that Working Nation was an expensive failure, there are still too many people associated with the Labor Party who hanker for the good old days.
The member for Melbourne will withdraw that statement. I will determine whether it's qualified or unqualified member for Eden Monaro. The member for Melbourne knows the obligation he faces.
I withdraw that statement, Mr Speaker.
The minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I'm advised by the member for Moreton that senior officers of the Brisbane City Council have told one of Australia's leading and most respected charities that the Brisbane City Council will not cooperate in putting together a Work for the Dole application because the Brisbane City Council has said that it's philosophically opposed to the scheme and that it wants it to fail. Well, Mr Speaker, this is very sad for the 100 youngsters who would have benefited from this Work for the Dole project, but it illustrates appalling double standards on the part of Brisbane City Council, because between 1992 and 1996, the Labor-controlled Brisbane City Council—
The minister will resume his seat. Member for Order. Minister for Community Services. Member for Caldwell has the call.
Mr Speaker, is it appropriate for the minister to be criticising the council on mere hearsay when he has no evidence? I think that is very inappropriate behaviour on the part of this
resume
House.
his seat. The Speaker has no reason to believe that there is anything insubstantial about anything that the minister has said, and I call the minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, Mr Speaker, between 1992 and 1996, the Labor-controlled Brisbane City Council hosted no fewer than 3,300 labour market program places, and in the process received $28 million in federal taxpayer funds.
The chair earlier warned the member from the Northern Territory. He persists with interjections. He will excuse himself from the House under the provisions of 304A. The member for the Northern Territory may wish to consult the Hansard Greens at the conclusion of question time. The member for the Northern Territory is asked to leave the House under 304A and will do so with— The member for the Northern Territory is named.
Move the member be excused from the House. Thank you.
The question is, the member for the Northern Territory be excused for the services of the House. All those that opinion say aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Division required. Division required. Ring the bells.
Right.
Lock the doors. Question is that the member for the Northern Territory be suspended from the service of the House for a period of 24 hours. The ayes will pass to the right of the chair and the noes to the left. I appoint the honourable members for Corangamite and Mallee as tellers for the ayes, and the honourable members for Maribyrnong and Port Adelaide as tellers for the noes. Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Manager of Opposition and Acting Manager of the House. More restraint, please.
Smith and O'Connor. Two Evanses and Miller. Kerr and Shack. Thompson and Fitzgibbon. Yerrick and Jenkins. Hollis and Bourne. Back of the head must be Griffin and Albanese. Berg and Farland. Burn and Farland. Coppel and Emerson. Ellis and Brosio. Livermore and Lawrence. Manby and Sidebottom. Irwin and Paul. Morris and Moxon. Gibbons and Hafford. Wilkie and Yofford. Flitter second. Murphy and Snowdon. Wilkie and Adam. Oh, sorry, Wilkie and Adam. Price and Monster. Loophole and Quick. Edwards and Elite.
The result of the division is aye 75, no 62. The question is therefore resolved in the affirmative. The honourable member is suspended from the service of the House for 24 hours. The Minister.
Speaker. Well, Mr Speaker, over 4 years, Brisbane City Council hosted 3,300 labour market program places, but hasn't put its hand up for a single work
Minister
for the dole
resume
place.
his seat. The member for Batman on a point of order.
Mr Speaker, it goes to a question of relevance. The question was specifically related to work for the dole. The minister has consistently said that work for the dole is not a labour market program. So far as I'm concerned, he should return to the question, which was about work for the dole and not successful working nation Labor Party programs.
Member for Batman will resume his seat. The minister was asked a question about Labor. Member for Moreton on a point of order.
Mr Speaker, I simply raise a point of order following on from the member for Batman's contribution. I guess it's been some time since he heard the question, but I asked about current as well as former programs.
He is not raising a point of order. The Speaker was about to rule on the member for Batman's point of order. The minister was asked a question about the Brisbane City Council and its attitude to labour market programs. I deem the minister to be in order and invite him to return to his answer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm advised, Mr Speaker, that only 31% of participants in Brisbane City Council's programs achieved positive outcomes, compared with 45% of work for the dole people going on to paid employment or training. Now, Mr Speaker, I think that it's time members opposite stop trying to sabotage work for the dole. It's time Brisbane City Council stop playing party politics with the future of unemployed young Australians and started cooperating with community groups that want to benefit from this program.
The Leader of the Leader of the Opposition.
My question is again to the Minister for Agriculture. It follows the previous two questions asked him. Minister, if there is no GST on taxes, are the rice, wheat, fishing or sugar research levies taxes or charges under the legislation?
Good question. Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forests. Minister for Forests and Conservation.
Mr Speaker, as I answered in the last couple of questions, the first principle, and good to see the Leader of the Opposition listening, is that you don't impose a tax on a tax. The second question is a valid question. Are those levies taxes or fees for services? We've worked through the detail of the tax reform package. Will we sort out now? You can't.
The minister has the call. Members on my left.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So, let's just make it clear. The first point is no taxes on taxes. The second point is you've got to assess.
Order. Members on my left.
You've got to assess whether they're a tax or a fee for service, and if they're a fee for service, then it gets rebated back to the person that pays it as a business input.
What are you worried about?
Leader of the Opposition, the member for Mallee.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is addressed to the Minister for Employment Services. It goes to the issue of harvest labour, which the minister would be aware of the importance of in terms of the provision of sufficiently skilled labour for the harvesting of horticultural crops across the nation. Could the minister please explain to the House what measures are being put in place to ensure the demand for labour can continue to be met?
Minister for Employment Services.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Mallee for his question and for his interest in this very important area. Mr Speaker, as the House knows, some of Australia's most important industries, such as the citrus, grape, stone fruit and cotton industries, critically rely upon seasonal labour. It's no secret that many growers have had trouble finding enough workers to harvest their crops, and the government is determined to ensure that the labour requirements of these industries are met, and that young Australians and working holiday makers are more aware of the job opportunities that now exist in these industries, particularly because an experienced picker can earn up to $800 a week. So to that end, Mr Speaker, the government has established a National Harvest Trail Working Group, which will be chaired by the member for Hydemarsh. Other members are the member for Mallee, who asked the question, the member for Blair and the member for Hume. This working group also includes Mr Brian Caddy, Mr Don Carazza and Mr Bill Trevor, representing area consultative committees of my department, and it includes representatives of the McIntyre Valley Cotton Growers Association, the MIA Council of Horticultural Associations, the Mildura District Harvest Labor Committee and the Northern Victoria Fruit Growers Association. Mr Speaker, this working group will hold a series of public consultations on the labour needs of their industries. It will then make recommendations for the establishment of a national harvest trail to promote ongoing year-round employment in these industries and to help boost Australia's tourist potential. I thank the members involved in this working group and those other fine Australians for the contribution they're making.
The Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Treasurer. Treasurer, will you confirm that full implementation of the proposal to tax trusts as companies outlined in your original GST package has been factored into the budget surplus projections? Won't any further watering down of this measure cut into the surplus? And will you guarantee to deliver this measure in full?
Treasurer.
Well, Mr Speaker, the government's policy as announced in a new tax system ANTS stands. The government is proceeding to implement that, and in relation to those matters that are fully costed as part of ANTS, they have of course been taken into the budget position, as the Prime Minister says. It's really a luxury for the Labor Party to start asking questions about surpluses. I mean, it is an absolute luxury. I can tell you this, Mr Speaker, when I first became Treasurer of Australia, nobody got up and asked me questions about cutting into surpluses. It was all a question about what we were going to do about a $10.5 billion deficit, which the Labor Party opposed every dollar to us cutting.
Treasurer, resume his seat. Has the member for Kingston.
Mr Speaker, the Treasurer strayed away from the question.
The member for
the Deputy Prime Minister on the Sunday program.
No, the member for Kingston cannot raise this as a matter of relevance. I will rule on the relevance issue. Member for Kingston will resume his seat. The Treasurer has asked a question that was relevant to the surplus, and I believe he has now concluded it. Trusts and its relevance to the surplus, and I believe he has now concluded it. The honourable member for Blair.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Aged Care. Is the Minister aware of an article in Perth's Sunday Times about the standards of residential care? These standards are of interest to all Australians and certainly to residents in my electorate of Blair, Mr Speaker. Can the Minister inform the House how the standards of residential care are being improved by the Howard government?
Minister for Aged Care.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I do thank the member for his question, because the information that I'm about to deal with is relevant to people right across Australia and not only to those people in Perth. The fact of the matter is that the article that you referred to in fact shows that the accreditation agency established by the reforms of this government are in fact doing the job that they were set up to do. It is part of the appalling legacy of the Labor Party that was left behind that we have so many aged care facilities which, quite frankly, are not up to scratch. They are not adequate for the sort of care that we require for older Australians. The Labor Party tolerated standards, or shall I say lack of standards, that we simply will not tolerate. And the establishment of the Standards and Accreditation Agency, which is doing its job and will work through to ensure that standards are met, are part and parcel of the excellent reforms that this government has put in place to ensure that care, when needed by elderly Australians, is properly given and given in a way that the individual benefits from that care.
Manager of Opposition Business.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, is it true, as reported this morning, that coalition MPs loyal to you have been telling other Liberal MPs, and I quote, "If the coalition loses the next election, it will be Costello's fault because..."
Order. Order. The Manager of Opposition Business has the call.
What colour's red?
The Manager, members on my right.
Some are laughing and some aren't.
The Manager of Opposition Business will come to his question.
I was in the middle, but I was somewhat
I'm
interrupted.
inviting you to continue.
And I quote, Mr Speaker, "If the coalition loses the next election, it will be Costello's fault because he is now responsible for implementing the tax." Mr Prime Minister, is it also true, as reported this morning, that at least one Liberal MP has been briefed along those lines by your office?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, from GST to Glen Milne, a story of the Labor Party's tactics. Mr Speaker, let me make a couple of things clear. Firstly, the question is hypothetical because the coalition does not intend and will not lose the next election. That's the first thing. The second thing, Mr Speaker, is that the Treasurer and I together are strongly committed to the cause of taxation reform. And may I say that policy ownership of the tax reform plan belongs not only to the Treasurer, who's done a very remarkable job in putting that policy together, but it is also the policy of the government from the Prime Minister down, and suggestions that my office would have authorised anything critical of the Treasurer are quite wrong.
The honourable member for Macquarie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is addressed to the Minister for Community Services. The government has recently announced a number of initiatives to address the problem of homelessness. Can the minister advise the House what the government is doing to tackle this problem? In what ways will this benefit families and young people in the electorate of Macquarie?
Minister for Community Services.
Speaker, may I thank the member for Macquarie for his interest in youth homelessness and for his strong support for the government initiatives in this area. The government has now announced that an additional $45 million will be provided for services for homeless people, and when you add this to the commitments made in the last federal budget, that means $90 million more for the Supported Accommodation Assistance Program over the next 4 years. And that increase in funding is in line with the recommendations of the National Evaluation of the Supported Accommodation Assistance Program, and it will certainly provide much-needed additional support for the people who are providing this excellent service, particularly for people who are without homes or who are needing assistance. Now, this funding is in addition to the amounts already announced by the government, the $60 million over 4 years and $20 million each year thereafter, to assist with the intervention of young people who are at risk of becoming homeless. Now, this will certainly help families stay together and to sort out their problems. This is quite a significant initiative announced out of the Prime Minister's particular interest in these matters. And this extension of funding will enable another 100 priority areas, providing assistance to about 12,000 cases to intervene with young people and their families to assist them in cases where homelessness is an issue. There will be around 30 regions identified in the first selection round and a further 45 in the second round where pilot projects will be implemented. And I might add that all existing pilot projects, Mr Speaker, under the youth homelessness pilot projects will be automatically included in the priority areas for the first selection round. Now, the member for Macquarie, I know, is particularly interested in the fact that Senator Newman indicated that the Nepean Blue Mountains Hawkesbury area has been highlighted as one of those which will be high priority areas under this program. And in addition, the Nepean Family Integration Project has been awarded one of the pilot programs and this particular program will particularly assist vulnerable families who are facing homelessness issues. Now, Mr Speaker, this government is indeed committed in a real and practical sense to assisting families and young people facing homelessness, and our financial commitment demonstrates that we're prepared to work with the states to ensure that there is a range of suitable programs across the nation to assist young people facing homelessness problems.
Prime Minister.
Speaker, I ask for further questions be placed on the notice paper.
Good.